It's more like a roar, right? So I guess, yeah. I feel like, you know, always deal with the face first, but, um, so yeah, so hello, right? Hello. For some reason I'm thinking of the song "Steal My Sunshine." So it's interesting. So first of all, like, how was my day? Right? Not good again. Right? We had a Zoom call, and I I started nodding off, and it was so bad because they were talking about we were talking about something at work, right? And something related to where I won't go into the specifics, but I just was like I was just like so tired, and I just could feel myself like nodding off. And I think we talked about this like last week about like college lectures, right? To be honest with you, like you know, in my working life, because of probably the internet, I don't know, um, but it is because of the internet. I think I haven't had that much of sort of the nodding off experience. But between the ages of like 20 and probably like 22, like I couldn't stay awake for anything, right? And it's funny, like the hello is like waking up at the start of the end of the world, right? And I don't know what the world is like for me sometimes, but it feels like, to be completely honest with you, like sometimes I look at my disheveledness in the video. Obviously I can see myself as I'm recording. I suppose other YouTubers can't, and B, wouldn't look at themselves when they record. I don't know. I think that's a matter of style, but I don't know. It could be something else. But it feels so apocalyptic. It's weirdly apocalyptic in the sense that, and what I mean by apocalyptic, I mean, like, these are sort of those. It's like that disaster movie vibe that you get, right? Like, it's somehow like I'm eating, I'm drinking, I'm I have, like, I'm generally okay, although I'm waiting for my physical health to fail me at any moment now. But it feels like I feels like the world is over. And I don't, I can say this without exaggerating, but I know it sounds exaggerated, and I think it also sounds like it probably sounds very weird or probably not relatable to a lot of people. Question of the day: do you guys feel like your life is over? Like, because I feel like that's like a teenager would say that. But it's interesting because, yeah. So I nodded off during college. College. I think I killed myself during college. But it's interesting because, like I said, like that sort of passive. The colleges would sort of just talk about stuff, and then you would kind of you try to be actively engaging in the information, but it's not really that. It's not information that you can really have, and so you just kind of you just sleep, and that's kind of it. And so it is very interesting. I suppose I'll be honest with you too, like, like I said, like for me, I'm trying to figure out I'm trying to figure out how this stuff works in terms of. So two things I suppose I'll talk about, right? The first thing, and we'll try, if I don't get to the second thing, there's a sort of intention not to talk about it because I kind of don't want to talk about it. But at the same time, if I have to, if I don't get the 10 minutes first, I will, talking about my first topic, I will talk about the second topic. And if we'll get into the second topic because I want to kind of explore it. It's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting. I'm not exaggerating. This is getting ever more dire. Anyway, so the first point is sports, right? So as I think I've said before, like, sports, has always been something that I have enjoyed, and I'm wondering, like, what, if anything, we can take away from that, right? So one of the things about sports is that I tended to always go with the underdog, right? And I wonder if that has. So I do side with the underdog. There's something about me that, I'm gonna try to support the little guy, and I guess, like, I'm wondering if that's related to the fact that, paradoxically, even though I'm not that small of a person, I am small, obviously, in other ways. And so, you know, I'm wondering if there's the empathy or if there's also this idea that like, I don't know, like, I feel like that's definitely a characteristic of my personality, I suppose. I don't know. It's interesting, right? But the thing is that, I both really have always enjoyed sports, and I think not only because there's sort of this idea of the underdog versus the overdog, but I think it's about the challenge, right? And I'm wondering if probably that more than anything else defines sort of who we are as people, right? So this idea of because to me, like you think about like someone like Napoleon, right? First of all, I will never relate to a Napoleon. I'm just saying. People sometimes I get the idea that there's something about Napoleon that where he sort of fought the underdog. I don't think of Napoleon as the same as David, right? Like David and Goliath, right? Like so. I mean, I'm not familiar with the story, but I don't think of Napoleon as. I think Napoleon as someone who got his ego. Had an inferiority complex, and it was the inferiority complex that sort of propelled offensive attack, right? Like I said, I don't know. I'm just giving you my impression of what I think of when I think of Napoleon. Whereas I don't think of David that way. I don't know that the story of David and Goliath, but I think of David as he was the guy who was more defensive. There's a difference between being defensive and offensive, and I wonder if. First of all, that matters, but I think it matters maybe morally, maybe. I don't know. It's interesting. But I don't really like, so for me, I've always wanted to play like good defense over good offense because, when you're playing offense, there's something about being the aggressor and being sort of the overdog, right? Like, not necessarily like the Uber man. I don't know, like, is the Uber man necessarily the overdog? It's interesting, right? Like I don't know. I don't know how to. I mean, I'm just kind of like I don't think it really. I don't think it really matters that much, but it's interesting because you wonder if you miss part of the story because you don't sort of have the facts straight. I don't know. But anyway, but like I said, so I needless to say, sports guy. I like sports. I like the competition aspect to it. I also like the excitement of it. Right. So you might ask, the first preliminary question is sports a necessarily extroverted activity? Right. I don't know. It's interesting. It's one of those things where with a litany of other things, like, for example, like rock music or pop, even pop music, all of these sort of entertainment components, right? You see them really develop, or at least the history sort of shows that they really develop with the age of more sort of leisurely activity, right? As one thing I like to do, I do enjoy sort of history. I don't think that means anything, right? As much as sort of probably like generally liking sports doesn't mean anything either. We sort of take these things and we say, well, this means this, and probably what really means something is, look at other overarching patterns. I don't know though. I'm still trying to grapple with this as I live on the edge of no man's land. But I should have ended there. That would have been better timing. No, but the point is that because there's something about like let's try to fight back at like sort of these ridiculous notions, and I do want to understand them at least, right? And what I mean by that is sort of like there's a certain way to be. There's a certain way to look. There's a certain way to, to speak, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't do that, then you're not really, sort of considered, right, as, a person, right? It's interesting. It's just interesting. I don't know. But anyway, but what I was going to say is that to me, like sports was a cultural and societal phenomenon, right? Like, so, you look at sports, the big American sports and even, European with European football, right? You had that developing as far as I know, right? As far as I can tell from the history books, et cetera, that I might be able to learn from. You have them developing in the past sort of century, right? So that, really you think about like modern society, it encapsulates a lot of these ideas that we might think of as, sort of extroversion, right? And whether that's based on the fact of that maybe the extroverts were usually just sort of working for a king or working for whomever. It's very interesting, right? Because that now we get to watch sports, and so yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. I think that I felt that there was also something very masculine about watching sports and liking sports, and I think that also had an effect on me liking it. The excitement, the suspense that sports can build, right? The stories, like I said, like for me growing up, some of the hallmarks of my 7 to 10 year old life was watching the Bulls, right? Watching the Bulls versus the sort of New York Knicks, and seeing how they watching that, and I didn't like Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael Jordan's obviously the greatest of all time in my opinion, but I didn't like him. I mean, I was definitely cheering for those Knicks, right? And you remember 98 Reggie Miller versus Michael Jordan. I remember like the 98 conference finals, right? Miller, it was one of the, I think that won 7 games. The Jazz didn't even take the Bulls 7 games. But this was, but it's sort of like, what am I using there? Like, what am I doing there by sort of, forms a part of who I am. And you say, well, this is a function of sort of your way of being. And I would question that, because I don't know how we can really map it on. But sort of mapping on all of these, data points is what we're going to try to do, I suppose. And we'll do it on 511's Thoughts. So stick around on Side A. Hope everybody has a great day. And yeah.